Hey everyone, this is Imani from Hedgecraft Heirlooms. Sorry I'm just a couple minutes late. My day job went a little long, but here we are, we made it. We're here today, we're going to be talking about goddess magic. Specifically, we're talking about the goddess Gaia because the theme for this week has been Mother Love Week, and I figured why not talk about the biggest, baddest mother of all, and that is Mother Earth. Hey Tabitha, we're going to be talking about goddess magic today, specifically talking about Gaia. Because this week is all about mother love. Sorry, I'm just adjusting a smidge. Really quickly, just hang in there with me. I'm going to pull up a second window for myself on my tablet. Hello. Just because Facebook is dumb, short version. It doesn't like to show me all the comments, so I have to pull it up. It has you in the video live manager, but it doesn't always show me all the comments in there, so I have to open it up twice so that I actually see things. If I could manage to open up the right thing myself, that would help. So if you're here watching while you're waiting for me to get myself completely set up here, make sure you throw a hashtag live into the comments. It helps the algorithm reach its little fingers out and find other people that might like to watch with us. Let's see. I see there's already a comment here on Facebook that I'm missing live. Kelly is live. Welcome, Kelly. I'm glad you made it. Alright, so I am good. So, but while we wait for more folks to show up, what about Yord? Are we talking about mother goddesses? I'm not familiar. I'm not sure what that was in. Hey, Tales from the North. We're going to have to be talking about the goddess Gaia today because my theme for this week has been Mother Love because Mother's Day is coming up. But I thought in the pre-show while we waited for folks to show up, again, if you're here, although, of course, if you could throw a hashtag live into the comments, that'd be swell. Hashtag replay if you're watching on the replay. In our pre-show, we're going to be talking about the Gaia theory, because I think that's a really, really interesting thing to kind of mull about and think about. And it's, of course, named after the goddess Gaia, as you might imagine, based on just me saying it out loud. So the Gaia theory is also called, so Yord is Norse. I believe that she is a primordial Norse earth goddess. Yeah, so I mean, you could make an argument that Mother Earth is Yord. But Gaia specifically, I'm talking about today, just because, and that's just me. I have not worked. I don't work a ton with deity, admittedly myself, with specific ones, or I have very particular ones I work with. And I haven't felt super connected to any of the goddesses in the North Pantheon, so I haven't really worked with them personally. But I have always liked the idea of Pan and Gaia, and I like the fact that together they make Pangea, which is what they called the original, singular continent that was on the Earth before the tectonic plates moved and it turned into the continents we have now, etc., etc. So anyway, I've always found the idea fascinating of this sort of very primordial energy that I personally get from Gaia specifically. So that's why I want to talk about her today, because that's what I thought of when I was thinking about Mother Love and Earth Mother was Gaia was my first thought. So the Gaia theory is also called the Gaia hypothesis or also the Gaia paradigm. And I'm trying to summarize this because there's a lot of definitions out there that are really convoluted. So hopefully this makes sense to you guys. It made sense to me. But the theory is that the Earth forms a single self-regulative, wow, I hope if I pronounce things correctly, self-regulative homeostatic system, essentially presenting the notion of the Earth as being alive or that it behaves in a way like a living organism. Now, really quickly, I didn't think to write it here, but in case you're not familiar with the concept of homeostasis, basically what it means is that the Earth or our bodies are generally homeostatic as well. For example, we tend to more or less maintain the same body temperature, and our body has all kinds of self-regulative processes kind of in place that allow our body to do that, things like sweating and things like shivering, that help us to maintain at a certain place, because within that temperature range is where our bodies, perform at its most, maximum performance. So the idea of the Gaia theory is that the Earth is effectively the same way, so that it is either a living being or it is like a living being. And Gaia evolves through a cybernetic feedback system operated unconsciously by the biota. So again, they're talking about how that's possible. Basically, they're talking about a feedback system that's taking place, biota referring to the living things, often on a micro, very small scale, A lot of people talk a lot about the mycelial network, so a lot of it has to do with fungus too, and very, very small plant life, more than anything else, because that's what's of course closest in proximity to the earth itself, and what, kind of reaches and touches everything. But many processes on the Earth's surface that are essential for the conditions of life depend on the interaction of those life forms, especially microorganisms with inorganic elements. These processes establish a global control system that regulate the Earth's surface temperature. I mentioned temperature for our bodies as well. Atmosphere composition, ocean salinity, which is powered by the, okay, so this is a really wordy phrase here, but bear with me. Global thermodynamic disequilibrium state of the Earth system. That was something I copied and pasted. But the short version is that the Earth kind of regulates itself, or at least it appears to. So that's what the theory here is that Earth is capable of maintaining itself. So in biology, there are a few different things. So there's been a lot. So I think this theory first came out in the 80s, maybe. I should have written it down, but I didn't. That would have been smart. And there's been a lot of people that have kind of studied it since to kind of figure out, is this real? Is it actually a thing? Is the Earth alive? Because, that'd be really mind-blowing and, super cool. But there are several significant characteristics that are associated with something being an actual living organism. And those things include that they must be involved in an evolutionary process, which you could maybe argue the Earth is kind of. And it must, here we go. So all living organisms must belong to evolving populations, have ancestors, and interact in complex ways with other living organisms. Hey Elle, we're here talking about the goddess Gaia. First in our intro, I was talking about the Gaia theory, because I think that's a really interesting related topic. So I'm going to hit my little wave button here to let you know that I see you. So, of course, none of those things are exactly true with Earth, so they have more or less debunked the Gaia theory as suggesting that the Earth is alive, per se. Because Earth has no ancestors, it doesn't belong to its own biological population, at least as far as we understand it anyway. I mean, I guess you could make an argument that, maybe we just don't understand how the universe works completely yet. And it does not produce offspring, that one we're pretty sure of. And of course, it does not have any ancestors, per se, that we're aware of. And it participates in no evolutionary processes itself. Obviously, all the beings that inhabit the Earth do, but the Earth itself does not. So Gaia theory is super, super cool as far as, Western science and biology is concerned, but there's really no science to back up the idea, even though it is super neat. And however, there is the claim that the Earth's, biosphere is a homeostatic system is actually established, though. So even though, it is not alive, it definitely does self-regulate in ways that are really, really fascinating. It's very resistant to major changes, at least within a certain range. So even though, and that's part of the concern of global warming, is that we're starting to creep out of that sort of homeostatic system that we've been balanced in for so long. And we don't know, much again, our body temperature, if we get too hot, then we start to overheat and our system doesn't work the same way. The Earth is very similar. So the Gaia theory overall has been dismissed by biologists, evolutionary biologists specifically, but it is used as a guideline by a lot of climatologists and geochemists. So it does still have a place in some sciences, but it has been mostly kind of dismissed as being, potentially true that the Earth is alive, per se. So that's the Gaia theory. Now that you're all here, we've got a little audience happening. Let's talk about the actual goddess Gaia, because that's what everybody came here for. Kelly says the Earth is alive. We are probably the equivalent of a parasite. That is probably very true. I, of course, was really very specifically only talking about the science. Obviously, as a witch and a pagan, I do believe in the Earth as a living thing. With my kids, I often talk about how the grass is the hair of Mother Earth. If they start talking about peeling bark off of trees, and I was like, how would you like it if I peeled your skin off? So to me, obviously, the Earth is living in that way. I'm just saying that biologically, by Western science standards, they can't prove that, was more my point. But yes, I agree. But let's talk about the goddess Gaia, because that's what this is supposed to be all about. So the goddess Gaia is considered to be the personification of the Earth, so Mother Earth. She was post-Neolithic, so that means she was really old, or is really old, I should say. And she probably evolved from a Proto-Indo-European Earth Mother goddess. Hey, Fernferg, we're here talking about the goddess Gaia today, in honor of Mother's Day, which is coming up soon. So she's actually one of the oldest goddesses that we have named. Obviously not the oldest, but one of the oldest. I don't know how old Yord is. Tabitha was mentioning earlier, but Gaia is pretty far up there. Obviously, if you know anything about mythology at all, you probably know, well, first of all, Gaia is from the Greek mythology. And there's a lot of crossover, I guess you could say, from the Greek to the Roman mythology, where they have a lot of the same deities, but they're named a little bit differently. So in the Roman pantheon, Gaia is called Terra, which a lot of people probably know is also another word that is synonymous with Earth. And is Latin in origin. Like in Spanish, the word for earth or land is tierra. So it's derived from the same root word. So Gaia, going back to Gaia specifically, is a primordial, pre-Olympian goddess. So she is actually before the Titans. So you have the Olympians, which is like Zeus and Hera and Aphrodite and all of these. And then you have the Titans. So Hecate, I believe, is a Titan. And there are others that I don't really know overly well. And then before the Titans, we had these primordial, post-Neolithic deities like Gaia. And I'm sure others that I'm not remembering because I didn't research that specifically for this. But she is very old. That's the point. So she is often considered to be the ancestral mother of the Greek deities, the Greek pantheon, the Greek mythology in general, sort of like the proverbial Eve, of that entire system. And in some myths, she's actually believed to be sort of the ancestral Eve of everybody and everything. It looks like I have a couple other people here watching, so if you're here watching, if you could throw a hashtag live into the comments, or over here, depending on where you are, that would be great, just so I can see who you are, so I can say hello, especially if you're on Facebook down here, because I can't see your names like I can on Instagram, and I would love to say hello. Getting back to Gaia as the, the idea of Eve, the ancestral mother of everybody. In the mythology, it's actually possible she may have reproduced asexually. Oh, hey, Aubrey, thanks for saying hi. But that's really interesting because obviously there was a certain point in our history where humanity didn't really understand how reproduction works. As far as they saw, the woman magically got pregnant and swelled with child and gave birth, and there was really no understanding of how the male played into that. So there are a lot of myths very, very early on where the goddess really does reproduce asexually without the help of a man. She just becomes pregnant magically. And Gaia is one of those. So there are some other less popular versions that suggest that... did I miss something? No. So, I get why I wrote this here. I wrote this outline. I usually write these outlines a week ahead of time, so sometimes as I'm reading and researching, I'm like, oh yeah, this makes sense. Put this in this order and I'll know what I'm talking about. And then by the time the day comes, I'm like, why did I put that there? And I have to kind of roll with the punches, but I know why I did this thing. So I was talking about the idea of Gaia as the primordial, ancestral mother of sort of everybody. But there are some other versions of Gaia that are a little bit less popular that suggest that Gaia was actually the daughter of Aether and Hemera, which represented the ether, obviously, and Hemera was the god or goddess, I'm not sure which, of the day. But that's less popular. But in that kind of system, Gaia had also two other siblings. One was Uranus, which was the god of the sea, and Pontus, which I believe was a sky god. So you had the earth, the sky, and the sea as these sort of primordial, beings that existed before anything else. So like a lot of other Greek deities, Gaia has several epithets, modifiers, so to speak, that are added to her name to kind of represent her various characteristics. So one of those was Anasidora, which means gift giver. So the mother goddess and Gaia in particular, was considered to be a very, very generous person. She's very giving. She gives us food. She gives us the plants. She gives us green grass to lay on. She gives us all sorts of wonderful things. So she was the gift giver. Another one was, and I don't know if double L's are pronounced differently in Greek, but I'm going to assume not. One was Kalagenia, which means beautiful. So the Mother Earth and Gaia is considered to be very, very beautiful, which I'm sure was very much based on the fact that, well, flowers and the earth are pretty. So it makes sense that they would put that in her name. Another one was Eurysternos, meaning broad-chested. So a lot of time they were referring to the chest as sort of like the ground, that we walk on. It was very broad. There's lots of it. And then another one was Pandoros. Again, might not be pronouncing that correctly, but it means all gifted. And if you're paying attention, you might notice that that word or that epithet is very similar to the name Pandora. And if I'm not mistaken, Pandora is, because I actually heard this on a game show earlier this week, that Pandora, it was actually believed to be, in some cases, the first god or goddess. The idea of Pandora's box where she opened it up and everything came into creation, almost like a Big Bang. So that's kind of a cool story. So in mythology, Gaia was the mother. So I mentioned that in some systems, Gaia had siblings, Uranus and Pontus, but in other systems that are a little bit more popular and more widely accepted, Gaia was the mother of Uranus and Pontus, which again were the god of the sky and the god of the sea. And they were also her consorts. Now, it's funny, and I wrote this because I thought this was interesting, so it was believed that they were her consorts, and through them, she birthed the Titans in this system. And one of the things I think is interesting about that is a lot of people, when they're getting into Wicca in particular, in the Wheel of the Year and the mythology of Wicca and how it explains things, you have the god and the goddess getting married, the god impregnating the goddess, and then the god dying, and then the god being reborn as the same person. And I feel like a lot of people struggle with that idea, but I think this is interesting because it kind of shows how that is something that has been happening for way longer than Wicca has existed, so it's not new. That's happened to lots of different plays. Aubrey says she loves the name Avani. Oh, thank you. It means earth, interestingly. So that's a very, you must know that thing because she put a little earth emoji in the comment. But yes, I love the name Avani too. My middle name is Joy, so it literally means earth, joy, which I kind of love. And I can't pretend that my mother gave me that name. I had to legally change that a couple of years ago because I've been using the name Avani for since 2015, so for a long time now. I didn't love the name I was born with. I never did. Although it did sound similar to Avani, which is part of why I like it. But anyway, I completely digressed. Let's get back to Gaia because she's way more interesting than my name anyway. So let's see. So in one of the myths, one of the Titans that Gaia birthed was hidden from her by Uranus. I'm not sure how you're supposed to pronounce it when it's the god as opposed to the planet. And Kronos, who I believe is another Titan. Tabitha says she loves her name. Tabitha's a great name. If my name was Tabitha, I'd probably love it too. My birth name for Ha-Ha's was Amy, actually. So Amy and Avani sound kind of similar, start with the same letter. And it means beloved. It's nice. I'm sure lots of people love it. I just didn't love it personally. I've met lots of Amy's who are perfectly lovely. It never felt right. And I like Avani, and I feel like it suits me, so I'm happy with that. And even my mom is cool about using it, so that's nice. So anyway, after this child was hidden from Gaia, Kronos castrated Uranus for doing it. And from Uranus' testicles, Aphrodite was born. So a lot of people have heard the idea of Aphrodite rising from the sea foam. In that myth, the sea foam is like semen, and Aphrodite comes into being from semen. So that's a fun story, which is interesting because that's part of where we start getting the deviation from sort of these very matriarchal systems to very patriarchal systems, but that's a whole other story. So Gaia actually raised Zeus. So obviously we have the Gaia who was pre-Titans who birthed the Titans, and the Titans birthed Zeus. I believe Cronus is the father of Zeus. But Gaia actually raised him. There were a lot of prophecies that suggested that Zeus would defeat the Titans, and somebody would try to kill him, and instead Gaia whisked him away and hid him and raised him so that nobody could do that thing. So Gaia basically was the reason why the Titans got defeated. so Zeus was the son of her daughter Rhea. That's how it works out. So that's cool. And then the other thing is that Gaia may actually be the original deity behind the Oracle at Delphi. So the Oracle at Delphi was actually a place called what is this? Again, this isn't the thing where I wrote these notes and I don't remember what I was thinking. So the Oracle at Delphi was actually a person, and her name was Pythia, Pythia, Pythia. She was actually one of the most powerful women in the classical world. You know, women at a certain point were not looked at overly favorably, but Pythia was, because she was the Oracle. Think of like the Oracle in the Matrix, where, you know, she's like a big deal. So she was a prophetess, but she's typically associated with Apollo. But according to, and this is a copy and paste, according to a certain Pythian priestess, the first to have prophetic powers was Gaia, who appointed Daphnis, a mountain nymph, as a prophetess at Delphi. So it is said that Gaia was succeeded at this oracle by Themis, and later by the Titaness Phoebe, who finally ceded her seat to Phoebus Apollo, surnamed after her. So you have a whole kind of lineage of prophets and prophetesses, the first of which is believed to be Gaia. Excuse me, I'm not dying, it's just from talking, I swear. Gaia may have had her own oracle at a place called Gaion, which is cool. It is often, and I talked about this a lot late last year, because at Lammas I did a focus on Demeter, and at Mabon I focused on Persephone, and at Samhain I focused on Hecate. Those were some of the last goddesses that I actually talked about. So oftentimes they are looked at as a triple goddess system. So you have Persephone as the maiden, Demeter as the mother, and Hecate as the crone. Some people believe that Gaia is actually the singular embodiment of all three of those as the triple goddess as a whole. So that's really cool too. I had never heard that before until I did the research for today. So this feels very apropos that after focusing on those three goddesses, now we're here talking about Gaia, who is sort of like the 3-in-1. So that's kind of neat. So some kind of traditional ways that Gaia is or was worshipped in Greek. She was often worshipped alongside Demeter, which, as I just mentioned, was also a mother goddess. So Gaia as being, you know, the earth, primordial earth mother, and Demeter as sort of like the mother of the harvest. So kind of like similar but different. So a lot of like temples that were devoted to Demeter also worshipped Gaia because they were very much related. And Gaia was considered to be a chthonic, I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, deity. If you know how to pronounce that word and I'm saying it wrong, let me know. Meaning that she is associated with the earth, things that are very kind of bodily, visceral, physical. Hecate is often considered to be a chthonic deity as well. Not often, she just is. She's a chthonic deity. But Gaia is as well, which would make you think that Persephone and Demeter are probably also considered chthonic deities. Just educated guess. So frequently, because she was a chthonic deity, one of the common ways that she was honored was that they would sacrifice black animals to her. So black dogs, black sheep, black whatever you can think of. So that's kind of fun. But in the modern day, the way that some people can or choose to work with Gaia include, working with her if you're looking to increase fertility, which can be both literal or metaphorical or symbolic, depending on what your intention is. Or creativity, because creativity and fertility kind of go hand in hand, especially if we're talking on a more symbolic plane. New beginnings, again, talking about kind of birth. Nurturing, abundance, and prosperity. So those are all kind of interrelated, so you can kind of put all those things kind of together. And one of the nice things about Gaia is that according to some of her adherents, she is a very non-demanding goddess. There are some that are very demanding that require many, many offerings and want you to do this at this time and that at that time. Hecate is a good example in my opinion. Whereas Gaia tends to prefer minimal offerings. She is the all-giving. She doesn't require your offerings in order to give what she gives because she does it out of love is the idea. She prefers, and for Gaia, when she does offerings, oftentimes the offerings that she wants are more service-based than item based or food based, you know. So some ways that would be really great for working with GAIA would include gardening, practicing conscious eating choices or eating seasonally and paying attention to the produce that you use and the quality of it and where it comes from, because those are all interrelated with Gaia and Mother Earth. Picking up litter, like volunteering, doing a volunteer event where you go and pick up litter at a park or in the road or anywhere really. Or creating an outdoor altar or ritual space in general. So having a space that's outdoors, on or near your property that you maintain and that you work with. So it's your way of physically getting your hands dirty and working with the land in some way. Even if you don't have your own property where you can do that, you can always, if you have a park that is really heavily wooded, you can kind of create a little space for yourself. And you don't even have to bring anything with you. It could just be sticks and leaves and rocks, and you can make a cairn, or you're not really supposed to do that in a lot of places, but you can, build one of those, it has a name, but those things that look like the things at Stonehenge, where it's two rocks, another on top, and you can put things on it. You can get creative. So there are ways that you can get around that, if you don't have your own property to work on per se. And then some symbols of Gaia, if you're looking to create an altar for her and you're not sure what to put on it. Anything that comes from the earth is a pretty safe bet. So flowers, leaves, fruit, dirt, literal dirt, crystals, of course, which grow in the earth. Colors that are associated with Gaia include green, brown, of course, purple, deep red, pink, a lot of the colors I have happening here, even black as a color that's associated with earth frequently as well. And some stones that are associated with Gaia, specifically include tree agate, peridot or peridot, quartz prehnite, I'm not sure how you pronounce that one exactly, and aragonite, which that one was interesting, but aragonite is a very brown stone, so that's not super surprising. So that's what I have today. That is all about the goddess Gaia. I hope that you enjoyed that. Now, just as a reminder, at the end of all of my live streams, I always do a live sale, and after that, we also do tarot card readings for the first 6 people that claim them. Now, I did not do an official live earlier this week. My kids are on spring break this week, so I kind of took it a little bit easy. So I didn't do a live stream on Friday, and as a result, I'm actually probably not going to be doing a live stream next Friday, because I would have done the prep work for that yesterday when I was taking off. So, but if I do it, it'll be a foraging adventure, so I don't really need to write anything for it anyway, so we'll see what the weather is like ultimately. But anyway, that said, I'm going to do a little quick sign off, but don't go anywhere because all those other things are still happening. But I'm going to be uploading this video to YouTube, so this will be my kind of place where I know how to cut it off. Kelly said, wonderful presentation. Thank you. Thank you so much for listening. Hang out because there's still more to come. But if you're here on YouTube, I'm going to sign off for now. So thank you so much for watching this live stream this week about Goddess Magic, about the Goddess Gaia, and I look forward to seeing you again next week. Blessed be.